Good evening, viewers at home, everybody who's watching us. This is Evangelist Chivhaka the second. We are here today with our elder Thabe from Johannesburg, Sandon. As you know, Hope in the Wilderness, we focus on three main things. That is self-mastery. We also look at relationships. We also look at business mastery. And today, with our elder here, we are going to look at various issues, especially family issues, because the elder is here today at the Bromfacia Estate because of the couples program. So he's just going to give us an overview of what we are going to expect from him. And also we are going to be hearing a lot from him on other issues. Welcome to Hope in the Wilderness, elder.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I think I feel privileged in many ways being invited to this program that is big. I think it's got two sides to it. Basically, I think that the family unit is the foundation. That's a starting point for everything else. But secondary to that is that God cannot relate to us except in a relationship. So whether things go right or they go wrong, they are relational. So nobody exists alone. Everybody exists in a context. The context is family. The context is the family that is nuclear, the specific family. But the context is the family, what is called extended family in English. We don't have that word in Sotho or any of the language, not even in Chona. There's no word called extended family because you can't extend that is organic. You can only extend what you can contract. You can't contract a family. You people who come from polygamous families, you come from huge families, and there's nothing you can do about it. But be that as it may, I think the family though becomes the guide when everything becomes uncertain. Not the blood, not the DNA, so much as the associations, the relationships, not so much as the themes that families develop over time. Now there's something they call legacies. Every family has a way of doing things, the mannerism. And the danger with South Africa, to be specific, every time they talk about legacy, then they talk about material and means. Families don't build material all the time. Families do build legacies of how to deal with something. Among other things that have broken is the legacy of respect, the legacy of family relationships that are of trust, that has been broken down. So broadly speaking, my topics will probably range from talking about raising teenagers. That's the one specific that I've been asked to address. Somewhere along the line, I think I speak to husbands and wife. My interest in the husbands and wife is really talking about man presence, meaningful presence. And then there's a danger here. Of all the things that have gone wrong in this nation or any other nation, it is because men are not present. The other thing that I address is probably the more difficult one. It is the other vagaries that come with the broader definitions of identity, the Lgbtq. I'm not casting aspersions necessarily, but I'm pointing at why it is a variation of what the original is, and there are implications for the family, the nuclear that we know. So there's a little bit of what time that will be spent on that particular one. Part of it because not only is it interfacing with the normal family, but it has influenced the normal family. Now, I am an elder. I've had to deal with situations where some of the practices that have come into the normal family are germane to other practices. Now, there's a difference here. Never do we have an obligation to hate anybody or to treat anybody as less than, because no one is less than because of their practice. Again, let me use English slightly. There's something called an adjective. An adjective is a descriptive word. A noun is a firm word. In other words, Jesus says a woman caught in adultery. He doesn't say that adulterer. Because when you say that adulterer, you create a permanent identity that may not be shifted very easily. So identities come from families. The biggest identity that doesn't change, by the way, is sexual identity. How you define yourself, how you define going into the future. Now, if an identity cannot progress in a dynamic fashion going forward, there is something of a challenge there. So the perception of it, while it carries the force, but it doesn't carry the actual reality as God intended. I think the other issue that I'm going to try and address is the issue of being intentional about family. Intentional that we love our wives. Intentional that our children should know that when we decide in this family, there's a husband and there's a wife, and the wife is listened to. But in that, then progress it further that as children grow from their teenagehood, you increase responsibility, you listen to them. So again, I'll deal with the issue of dignity. Part of what the African culture has a problem with, especially if I go back, it couldn't respect dignity. It had methods of raising that inflicts itself against dignity. What is dignity? Is the fact that a person is created in the image of God, and they have an ability. They are created to have an ability to think. It develops over time. When you're younger, you think less, but there's a lot that you think. And the duty of parenting is to discover that which makes you as a person, your identity. Now, I had 2 children, now I've got 1. Very different people. And how I approach the one ought to be very different from the other. In as much as I'm the common family, in as much as my values must be the same. So I have a set system of values, but I have applications that are different because I respond to their personality.
Okay, Elder, thank you so much. I'm actually lost in your philosophies and in your words and everything. But at least there are 1 or 2 items that I've just managed to grasp. And I want you to zoom especially on the one of respect that you've alluded to. That we have lost respect as a family, as a society. What do you think may be the cause of that? Probably before we also zoom on other issues that we are going to look at. But let's zoom on this one first. Respect. In which way is this generation? I hear some people call moral degeneration, everything. What do you think is the main cause of the loss of respect in the family? And how do you think, as a society, we may address it? Because above all, as hope in the wilderness, we are saying there's still hope. And it is also good for us to be receiving elderly advice and also solutions from people like you. We have seen it from way back. At least you are older, much older than us, up to now. And what are the variations that you have seen? What are the differences? Where are we deviating? Where is the respect going? What is causing that?
Yeah, that scares me because I will sound philosophical again. Let me make one statement. Human beings are value. They don't have value. They are value. So disrespect comes when we devalue ourselves first, and then we devalue others. Now, if you don't believe that, I'll go to the Bible. As soon as there was sin, Adam doesn't dance, doesn't speak so positively about the wife. He says, the woman you gave me. A language of dissociation and disrespect. Because that's not the same thing that he said a few days ago when the wife arrived. Now he's saying something totally different. Now, so the failure of relationships started from there. It progressively has gone on. Now, let me make another philosophical statement, but that's an important one. It's probably far more important than we think. Number 1, God cannot punish one generation different from another because God works from a principle. So whenever we say, and this Solomon disagrees with us, whenever we say this generation is worse than the other one, no, never. That has never happened. What happens is there's more human beings practicing the same evil. There are modalities that increases evil faster than it used to be. But the principle is the same. It is to fight against God and disrespect God. Now that has been true in Noah's time. The children laughed at him. That wasn't respectful. But there are other things that are being created which come in the form of positivity. Let's use one. There is something that says we must empower women, and that is correct. And God, it comes with, as soon as somebody has a means, they start speaking anyhow. Now, let me speak very straight as best I can.
Okay.
I don't like the way the girls talk to boys these days. Because you don't have to shout. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to tease to make your point. You can intelligently, politely make your point and be just as strong. Sharpen your argument, not the loudness of your voice. The lifting of the voice doesn't do that. So that's a form of disrespect. The other one is because while we might be equal as human beings, there are offices. You see, I have the office of being a parent to my son. This is an office. And an office is neutral from my feelings. My son is my son. So in some senses, he must honor me as the parent. Even when he disagrees, he should remember I am the parent. Now, that has been questioned. Like you can speak anyhow, especially if somebody is perceived to be wrong. You know, we respect those we think are successful and hold office for what we know. But we disrespect anyone who looks like they made some error somewhere else. A human being is not the errors that he makes. So disrespect comes then because sinners always criticize other sinners. My cousin Julius was a warder. He's retired recently, but he was guarding a huge chunk of there were 60 people who are not mentally stable. So I asked him, don't you think that they could just gather together someday, just grab that little gun and squeeze you? Then he said to me, have you ever seen crazy people organize on one idea? Every crazy person thinks the next one is crazy. And then that becomes the conversation. What is the problem here? We all have faults, mistakes, but we work harder to say the other one has a mistake. We disrespect others on the basis of a mistake. In other words, because he's a thief, we demean him because I don't steal, but I'm an adulterer. Because I'm an adulterer, some disrespect me, even though they know I'm a better businessman and all that. Because identities ought to be understood that there's only one identity that matters, that men were created in the image of God. The other identities that were assumed by mistake, by error, by omission, do not make who we are. So disrespect then comes with economic power. There is an increase that is being encouraged that girls should be rude. It's just encouraged. It's an intentional thing.
Let's just continue to zoom on that one, especially because you looked at the issue of women empowerment. What is the impact? Women empowerment, feminism, what is its impact on the family fabric? Because from what you are saying, if we point back to the Bible, we understand that God created a man and a woman, made them husband and wife, made them to be one. So how does then the world or the government come in and say we are empowering this one? I don't know, is it over that other one or what? How does it affect the fabric of the family? Empowerment itself. Be that as it may look, sounds very good. What is its effect on the day-to-day running of the family? And on the family structure as we see it now?
Your question is leading and in some sense it's dangerous.
Okay.
Let me shift back. Okay. It is inevitable that women should be empowered.
All right.
Firstly, they are the majority.
Okay.
Second of all, okay, let's put it differently. In the country I live in, which is South Africa, women constitute 52%, depending on where you measure it. If you go downwards towards the younger, then their number increases even more.
Yes.
But if you check anybody between the age of 40 and 70, they will still constitute 52 to 53% of the population.
Yes.
So there's more of them than there are men. If you then juxtapose female-headed household that are visibly that way, then that number jumps to the 70s. So it's a huge chunk that is handled by women.
Okay.
Move again at the same type statistic, and I'm using loose statistics, but they're broadly within the ballpark figure. So use the other one is that there are other choices that have come into play that were not necessarily part of the ideal. Perhaps if there's a mistake, it is a mistake that the Seventh-day Adventist Church and other conservative units are holding back to, which doesn't work functionally.
Okay.
You cannot withhold the power from a bigger majority.
Okay.
But you should understand what the power is. That's really where the issue comes in. In other words, empowerment as to economic means, standing on your own, being able to care for yourself is necessary.
Okay.
Empowerment as to respecting the woman as an entity. Because remember this, we've created a whole lot of things. Now they call a term that came from God, patriarchy is a bad term. But the truth of the matter is this, is that God created a husband and a wife as complements.
Yeah.
Culture has made the woman much less than the man in practice and in reality. So what am I saying to you? I'm saying to you, a woman has always been a complement of the man. And a complement is an equal but different entity.
Yeah.
So the woman was made differently. So
in other words, yes, you had maybe probably I had to rephrase my question. In other words, you are saying from the Bible's point of view, a woman is already empowered. Yeah. Because she has a role that she has to play. That role which is very, very critical and which a man cannot play, if I can understand you. So I'm trying to understand that well. So when this world talks of women empowerment, is it referring to a different thing as we understand how the family should function? Why am I saying that? We have seen that with the progressing of time, we have seen more ills in the family. We have seen more abuses. We have seen more divorces. Even that were not there before this language of feminism empowerment began. So am I saying, is this issue, is it the one that is causing things that are happening now, rather? Or there's somewhere, somehow, we are not grasping, we are not understanding. Because I believe that when God created us, men and women, we must all be empowered. Because we are people who are going to perform different roles. Even though probably I was saying maybe a man cannot do this role, but we know we can interchange our roles and do everything else. But really, a man should remain a man as God created him to be, and also a woman.
Yeah. You see, I think there's a complexity we must all appreciate. Okay. The role does not make a person. A person fulfills a role. The role that God and Adam and Eve were made for was not nearly as fixed as we make it to be. Paul writes, that famous chapter where he says, women be submissive and whatever.
Yeah.
There's the key to that text. There are two keys to that text, but let me use the one. The one key says, be submissive to one another in the fear of the Lord.
Yes.
So when I serve in a family unit, I serve in the fear of God. I adjust the way this family works to the extent that God is pleased. Yeah. So the only time that I'm variating away is when I am doing something that displeases God. Abuse displeases God. Anger displeases God. Undermining another displeases God. So God is displeased when a man, because he comes with a bigger income, pretends he's better than the wife. The other way around, God is displeased too. But it is also foolish where the woman is the physicist that makes 2 million a year and the man makes next to nothing at all because he can't get the job, to pretend that he's doing that. But that doesn't change the role, because let's put it this way. And there are many definitions that people make it specific to duties. Let me make two broad definitions. Tomorrow hopefully we'll address that. The man was created for leadership. The woman was created for management. In fact, I'll make the argument that they were sown. Their very base of creation differs in that the woman is always the manager. The man is always the leader. What has failed is that men have failed in leading. You see, you cannot lead unless you have some vision, something that you aspire to, something that guides you, some values that you subscribe to. Now, in absence, in most of the time, those values are not seen. That leadership role is not. So when that happens, the manager assumes more and more leadership. So if I would use the construct of your organization, if it was a corporate, managers become more important where the leadership role of the of the board of the CEOs.
CEO.
So you see more and more of the managers' absences, man. The women increase. When we have changed, and this is the problem that causes the violence, is that the old base that, I mean, when I was young, when I was a kid, a teacher who had a BA female and a teacher who had a BA male, the male earned more than 30% more than the woman. Not because he knew one zoot better.
Yeah.
Now, there's something wrong with that. You are rewarding more for the other one because of his gender.
Yeah.
You see, no one must benefit because of his gender.
Yeah.
No one must lose because of their gender. But the truth of the matter is this: separate what is spiritual and functional from that which is practical and functional. Okay. You know, economics are functional and practical. Yeah. Spiritual things are for leadership, the wholesomeness of the family. Yeah. So what is great disrespect and other things is because human beings are no longer whole. They are defined by material only. Those who have more material are respected. You know, there's a term they use when they're selling these expensive houses. Yeah. This one is for the discerning. Okay. Now, discerning is a very funny term. It means insight, knowledge, depth. So it has nothing to do with being rich. Okay. So, I mean, people who are rich who are very stupid. There's no depth or insight, but we associate that. Now, so we had to increase economic muscle of women, and therefore they become more important. The problem again is there is a definition that I think somebody questioned it. Was it in this group or the other group? Okay. That is the term that says the man is the provider a biblical term. I think it just came from one of the write-ups. Okay. The truth of the matter is that it's not a biblically found term. Okay. This is not. In God's mind, the couple, the sum of the two should be greater than the individual parts. Yeah. That's why it is challenging to be a single parent, because then there are certain things within the leadership and management are confined into one. So you being a natural manager have become the leader. Okay. You being the leader, you are attempting to be a manager. So you're carrying two roles.
If I can hear you properly, probably your philosophy is a bit deeper than probably the one that I can make here. But if I can hear properly, let me just say, you said a man was created for leadership, while a woman was created for management. Yes. All right. So in other words, if then as men we are not found to be taking this leadership role seriously, which is clarity of vision, direction, where the family must go, it's natural that the women will take over. Yeah. Simply because we there's a deficiency of the leadership role. Then whilst on that, we are then saying, because long time ago, or let me say people shifted from God's ideal and then began to, like you were saying, you are a man, you are earning, you are doing the same job, you don't know better than this woman, then you are earning more than this one, which is unfair because you are not supposed to earn a salary because of gender. So I think this rather is man created than God created. As I'm understanding from what you are saying, I think as human beings, we have shifted from God's ideal. We have put certain concepts and ideas in the family structure rather than those that are from the Bible. Because even biblically so, God has not designed that a woman may earn less or that. You see. So I think it's something that we are imposing in the family, cause chaos, and then we try to re-correct or reorganize, which I think is what we are trying also as we are speaking ideas here. We are trying to do. So in a nutshell, can you just maybe clarify also on what I'm saying here before we then look at the last phase, which I want us to look at? Probably.
Yes. Sin brought the fall. You see, here's the problem. We create structures to sustain what we know. Okay. Even when the base is shifting away. Oh, okay. So we created structures that protected the man. Part of it with dysfunctional, and I use the term carefully, dysfunctional patriarchy.
Okay.
We put it in church, we put it in work, we put it in school, we put it in the attitude, we put it in the expectation.
Okay.
You see, and this is probably important more, I hope I remember it, is when you raise children, be careful of your expectations of a boy than a girl.
Okay.
There are parents in your background, there was more expected of a boy than a girl. Because there was also a subject that she might be married into somebody.
Yeah, okay.
You see, now, God is offended by that. He gives talents for everyone to fulfill their potential. Now, if he meant what we are trying to do, he wouldn't have given so much beautiful talents to women.
Okay.
And so let's add another thing.
Yeah.
Women leadership is different from male leadership. But we don't have time to address that. But the point I'm trying to point out is saying a female is a female, a male is a male. Even within operating the same operation, the same parameters, the same MBA, MBL, whatever they study, exactly. But the woman will always, my brother, if you work with men, you break your leg, they discover after 6 months that you broke your leg.
Okay.
You arrive the morning when you've broken your leg, the woman say, you're not walking properly. Because women will always see something.
Yeah.
Now, for me, that's managerial.
Yeah.
If I went to your household, the one who's more likely to know what's here, what's not working, how naughty the child has been, is more likely the woman, even if they were working a full job.
Yeah.
Because there is a way that they are oriented that are not necessarily natural to men. So I'm saying the structures are ours. They are man-made.
Okay.
Because we are spirits with a human experience. Now that sounds philosophical here. But the point I'm making here is saying we really are made of God. We go through a human experience in the build-up of our characters for God's purposes. So what does that mean? That simply means in the process of trying to build who we are, we have created structures that have they come back to bite. Because now the man is feeling insecure. He was supposed to be a provider, but he can't provide. And that becomes problematic. I think it works very well with your philosophy of your organization. Because part of what is indicated clearly, violence is one point that points out where there's no self-mastery. But the failure in self-mastery is provoked by circumstances that have overwhelmed man. Businesses are just favoring the woman. And the man feels displaced. And if you will, the ethos of the world is moving towards entrepreneurial, where the individual can do something. Yeah. Guess what? It sort of fits the women far more than it fits the men. Time will tell you that. Yeah. Right. So, but that again is a human. It's a decay. Now they talk about moral decay. Yeah. It's a decay of a system that cannot sustain itself. Because if it works on discrimination, it can't be sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
Exactly. If it violates rights, it cannot be sustainable. Yeah. Over time, it will fail.
It will fail. Let's look at the last one. Let's look at this. You touched a little bit on it when you were giving us the overview of what you are going to talk about during this weekend. You talked of these LGTB rights that they've actually shifted from the norm of the family, and they are violating the family structure that was ordained by God from the beginning. So I just want you to add clarity on it, because here you are talking of rights that should not be violated, and you are saying anything that violates rights is not sustainable. And I think also as this group, these people, they also have rights that should not be violated. So, can you add clarity to that? Can you shed more light on that? I need to understand. There's an organization. Must understand.
Okay. Yeah. I think Jesus is our reference point.
Okay.
Love everyone, because everyone is not the sins they perform. Okay. They are human. They are God. They are potential heirs to His kingdom, regardless of what their practice is. Okay. No, we don't condemn those who smoke and are drunkards. Okay. In fact, we have sympathy for them. Okay. But we condemn this practice because we think we're sitting on a pedestal because we are okay, we are ahead, or we've got to dwell on this. Because there are many who are here who are practicing heterosexual, but in reality, they're not in their heads. Okay. There's porn, there's a number of things. And the reason I'm doing that is background. Here's a point. The practice of LGBTQ is totally different from what was there at the beginning. But its practice is not the people. See, we are avoiding the people. A right belongs to a person, regardless of who he is, what he practices, and how he lives. But the practice itself cannot be accepted. No, it is not acceptable that a person is hooked on drugs and is destroying his life. Okay, yeah. But the person remains acceptable to us. Okay. He remains our person. Okay. That's what the right is. The right is to respect the fact that they exist, they are gods, but not necessarily because we agree with them. Okay. Not because necessarily we accept the practice. Okay. So we must never say, hey, we're going to avoid you because you are in this practice. So what is the impact that they've had? The impact that it has made a very serious impact in that now sexuality is defined in any other way you please. Okay. Now, sex is supposed to be a primary identity thing. It was given. Now, you modern people will say what you like, but it was given for procreation first. Yes. So, something that can't grow is not in the nature of God. Now, again, I'm scared. I'm going to philosophy. God is dynamic. God grows. God is progressive. Your knowledge of truth, my knowledge of truth has to be progressive. Yes. We're talking tomorrow. We know less than what we will know in 10 years' time if we continue strengthening our minds, fortifying our thoughts, searching things, asking God. We should be enlightened and broad 10 years from here than we are, where we are today. So what am I saying then? The nature of these groupings, practices, do not necessarily tie in with the intention. Go forth and multiply and fill the earth. All right. But the challenge that it has brought now is, are all forms of sexual practices acceptable to God? I recently met and read about a person who's robosexual. Her sexual partner is a robot. So what I'm saying, we've opened up the gambit to have no limits to it. But we who are of the faith ought to respect the people and ought to show love and care, but not necessarily appraise the practice, because we cannot consistently say it is consistent with what the principles of God are. If it is inconsistent with it, it is inconsistent with it, and we should know that. But we shouldn't bash people and whatever. And it's a delicate balance. If I may conclude by saying, Jesus hung out with the wrong guys. In fact, he was killed. Among other things, Jesus was killed because he hung out with the wrong guys. The drunkards, the ordinary, the ones they didn't want to talk to, he spoke to. He spent more time with them than with. He didn't want to go to Jerusalem. The Bible put it clear. He never wanted to go to Jerusalem where the Sanhedrin, the real educated people were. But he was hanging out there with the ordinary guy. Now, what was Jesus doing hanging out with the losers? Because Jesus' duty was to earn the confidence of the losers. Which was to draw them to the Spirit of God that can change even the poverty. So what is the duty of the Christian? It is to love the brethren, to understand what they're involved in without condemnation, because he must draw them to that. And also the nice thing is that we all have our own faults and mistakes, and therefore we should be sympathetic to any practice that is wrong. And again, separate the practice from the individual. The individual is precious. The practice may not be consistent with God. No, that was profound, and it was a blessing having you. It was so deep. I quite didn't expect it to be so much deeper. I hope. I wish I would put it shallow, but no. You can go even further deeper. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It's actually a challenge for us to be looking at those issues, because sometimes, because of lack of knowledge, we end up doing wrong things.
in the name of God. But the way you have explained the concept of separating the practice and the person, I think we all must try to understand this concept. It's quite profound. It's quite profound.
Jesus. Now check this out.
Yeah.
Jesus never used a noun.
Yeah.
But you Shona speakers use nouns.
Mm-hmm.
The Sotho speakers use nouns.
Mm-hmm.
The woman caught in adultery, the woman with the issue of blood. But to the people around there, she was just the woman. The disease now defined who she was. So in practice, they then confined her to a woman with an issue of blood, as if there's nothing else to her. You know, there's a lot more complex in the person. There's a lot more that she could contribute.
Yeah.
But just because she had the issue of blood, which made people isolated, she could not contribute any longer.
Yeah. We
have a culture, and we should accept this, that limit. My wife says this to me. She says, if she were to choose a gender, God was asking her from the beginning, she'd choose to be a man 10 times over.
Why?
Because things favor a man.
But now the tables are shifting.
How far have they shifted?
They are shifting now. Business is favoring me.
How far have they shifted?
They are moving towards it.
Well, no, my brother. Look at the stats.
Yeah.
Women don't own 7% of the world.
Okay.
That's not shifting.
Yeah.
It's like checking out the other day. Jay-Z, not Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Kanye West got into trouble.
Yeah.
Because he was pointing out his argument was, or his point, he's anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
He said, no, the Jews dominate everything. It wasn't necessary for him to say that. But if you picked up certain communities, you realize how big their contributions economically defined. And again, I'm using one element, economics. The man you and I followed strongly had very little economics, but he had huge influence. Jesus had nothing. He died a loser. If you count him materially, he was a loser.
Yeah.
But not his influence, not what he stood for.
And
that's where the problem is. Spirituality is being lost in favor of other substitutes.
It was so much enlightening and so much deep, so profound, Elder Thabe. Thank you very much for honoring this invitation, and I hope our viewers are going to benefit a lot from what you have said. I hope we'll squeeze another chance for more insights into these issues of family. May the Lord God continue to bless you. Probably you had the one last word that you wanted to say.
No, the last word I just want to say is that I'm not a qualified psychologist. I have studied some other things like ethics and math and finance, but again, I work probably from the insides of the Word of God far more than anything else.
That we can really, I can testify. And may God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
God bless. Thank you so much.